What would a mini version of your dream life look like?
Welcome back to another fun episode of the Freedom Life Journey podcast. I'm Jamie Slingerland here with my beautiful wife, Ruthie Slingerland. This is the podcast for you.
Yes.
If you're looking to build a life of freedom and flexibility in your marriage, to get on the same page with your spouse, spend time with your family, and create income the way you want to do it. And for us, that's working from home, sometimes working from a hotel room. This is unusual because we're recording from a different location.
We have recorded from different locations before.
So we are at a hotel today, just a couple miles away from our house because we're crazy. We rented out our house and we're making...
You did what?
We rented our house out.
How does that work exactly?
People pay us cash. They stay at our house. We leave our house. We go to a hotel or a resort or travel, and we're getting paid to leave our house and to be together. So
that's ludicrous.
It sounds crazy, but it's working.
It is crazy. It is. I think it is.
It goes along with our Freedom Life journey. I'm trying to do a little branding there. You see what I just did?
That's great. And yes, strangers sleep in our beds. We're okay with that. We have nice strangers stay in our beds. It goes along with what our topic is today. It's all about living 1% of your dreams. You got to start somewhere. Starting today, what would a mini version of your dream life look like? And we asked ourselves that question 8 years ago, sitting in our living room, scratching our heads because we knew we were getting some traction financially, paying off our debt, but we weren't exactly super happy. We were exhausted. 3 kids under 7, grinding,
nose to the grindstone, maybe?
Nose to the grindstone. Day in and day out, we were working 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs. Huge progress financially. We woke up one day realizing we were going to be one of those people that were going to die after crossing the finish line. We're going to make it and then rest in peace. We were so disciplined and so hardcore that we were wondering, is this the best way to go about this?
Yeah, where's the happy medium, right?
And we didn't want to stop. We both agreed we could make this work or we can make this last 15 years. And we both agreed, you know what? Acute pain now, then chronic pain later.
Yeah, we were on the same page that this debt was out of our life forever. Gone, goodbye, sayonara, out of our life. Were we going to keep sacrificing forever? Because we had big dreams. We talked about what we want to do in the future, and we were all excited about that. And then it was sort of like, well, now we have the discipline of knowing how to make money and work together, and we could just save a bunch of money for the next 30 years, and then we could do something really cool when our kids moved out and our hips were bad and our bodies were breaking down, but we had money.
I sure hope our hips don't go bad. I think that's, you're hitting on that pain point, was that we thought we're going to get all this work done and pay off all this debt. And someday in about 20 or 30 years, we can celebrate and live the life that we've always wanted to live. We did the math.
It just wasn't a compelling vision.
It wasn't. I said, okay, wait, we have 2 options here. We can either use credit cards, go to Disney, do what everybody else is doing, argue over money, or we can work really hard, save everything, and wait until we're
60.
Retired. 60 is not sounding that.
Sorry if you're 60.
I was
75
say 60
or 80.
sounds great. Let's remember looking at the wall, staring at the wall, just thinking this timeline is broken. This timeline is not good for me. I don't agree with either of these options. When we looked at the timeline and we thought 2011, 2021, 2031, 2041. In 2041, we will live our dream.
It was either buckle down and work together and sort of live a life that seemed very dutiful and full of lots of responsibilities and not a lot of fun.
So our grandkids will be able to come over and have pool parties. We'll be able to travel with them around the world. And we were thinking something isn't right about this whole trajectory. We don't want to wait that long for our dreams to exist, for us to live a fulfilled life. I don't think we need to do that. Number one, we tapped into what our dreams were. But we had a conversation about what would we do? What would we love doing that wouldn't feel like work someday. That is how this idea of a bed and breakfast was born.
I remember that was so hard for me to do.
What part?
To dream about even the bed and breakfast, because talking about it and knowing that it could never happen for 30 years was really difficult for me. And so I remember you being very much encouraging me to have that conversation, to put some skin on the bones of what would it look like. Because remember, it was before Cecilia was born that we went to Quebec on that one trip, and we stayed in that bed and breakfast in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought, with our personalities, we could do this really well, to host people. And imagine having this amazing property and you can actually make money off of it, where people come and you're blessing them and they get to stay in the house and enjoy themselves. And
I thought you would be a great tour guide. You just give people historic tours. I would make breakfast and do manicures and pedicures. We just thought, with the way our wiring is and the things we love, we would do a great job. Mm. Oh, we'd rock owning a bed and breakfast someday.
Yeah, I just remember being in a spot where I didn't even want to let myself dream about it because it seemed too much of a loss.
So there was pain involved.
Well, I'm feeling pain right now thinking about how I felt.
That's
that,
good.
like, my energy went down, and I'm just.
You're tapping
I remember
into
going
your heart.
there and thinking, okay, so we were, I don't know, what were we? 29 years old with our second kid on the way, $90,000 in debt. That was before we got Dave Ramsey's book and decided to pay off our debt. And I remember thinking, there's no way that we could ever do something like this, even though I'd love to. And then we decided, it was a completely different conversation, but it was by God's grace and serendipitous that the stars aligned, and we had that kind of experience where we said, there's no way we want to live our life deeply in debt,
yes,
fighting over money. Our marriage wasn't going anywhere. It almost seemed like a step in the opposite direction, where we said goodbye to our dreams because we could no longer go places and put things on our credit card. But something happened when we got about halfway through paying off our debt.
What happened for us is we knew that the pain was temporary. So we made that decision that we were going to pay off our debt. I didn't feel like my dreams were at a loss. I felt like my dreams were on hold, which is different than you. So maybe I'm more optimistic than you.
No, as a 7, the avoiding pain, the discipline of the 30 months that we spent doing extra jobs, it's once we learned the skill of working together, our income went up.
So for us, we realized that later was defined by 30 years, retirement, 30, 35 years down the road. But what happened, which was also a blessing, was that we realized it doesn't have to be 30 years down the road. We also realized that we can be creative now with our limited circumstances, and we don't have to postpone the joy of life because we're on this debt journey.
But we do have to postpone the magnitude of the size of the dream if we can't underwrite it or we can't afford it.
Yes.
So like the example is that Airbnb that we had stayed at in Quebec. It was in our heart to do something like that in 30 years. It was a bed and breakfast. Oh, that was before Airbnb, wasn't it?
It was probably around, but we stayed at a bed and breakfast. And what happened was when we had this conversation where I said, what could we do? And Dan Miller was probably an inspiration to this exercise. What would we get paid for that would never seem like work? That we would just serve people and it would feel like play or something so exciting for us. And we talked about the bed and breakfast. That was something that came up, and well, that's going to happen maybe in 15 years. We'll have enough money to put down on a property. Maybe you could buy a historic home. And you said, we have a historic home.
Yeah, we weren't seeing what we had.
And so then we started to take an inventory. So I think that leads us to the second thing. The first thing is identify what dreams you have. And it does take courage, like you said, vulnerability to identify those dreams. And the second thing is take an inventory of what you already have, because we thought, oh, well, that means we're going to have to save this much money to put down on a historic home. And that's going to be 15, 20 years down the road as well. So good luck. But we started seeing what do we have already that we could use or leverage, as you would say, in a different way. Those creative solutions to our debt problem were also becoming the creative solutions for our dream problem.
Something happened, Ruthie, where we started asking ourselves a different question. And that question was, how can we do a smaller version of that 30-year vision? And what happened for us is that it was really easy for us to do a smaller version of it, but we hadn't even thought about doing a smaller version up to that point. We started doing it with the Airbnb in our historic house in Buffalo. That attic space literally had a hole in the wall, and we just started with what we had.
What would happen if we created an Airbnb post? This is the question I asked Jamie. We put it out there.
I didn't think anybody was going to want to stay there.
We just tidied the place up as best we could, cleaned it as best we could.
We used the furniture that we already had.
We used what we already had. I did go to Target and bought some linens.
Like, how much do you think you spent?
$200. I bought some linens, some towels, some little things to put around in the room, and we rented it out. We started out at $40 a night. We realized that there were people out there that wanted to use our space, the space that we weren't using on the third floor.
Lots of people. It was really busy.
Lots of people. So for the next 3 years, we used that space. And what that confirmed in us was, if this is just one dream, what else do we have that we haven't even talked about that we could do a little mini version of that dream? So what's going to happen is one dream is going to lead to another dream, is going to lead to another dream. I think it's all about opening our hearts up to the possibilities.
The same thing happened when we wanted a pool and we couldn't afford it.
Yes.
So we went to Target and spent, $75 and filled up a pool?
So far, we're talking about living 1% of your dream, just to start living your dream.
Start with 1%.
Start with 1%, but you can't start if you don't know what those dreams are. So you need to ask your spouse. You need to ask each other, what would you love to do? What would be your dream job? Where would you go? What would you do? And have fun with it. This is in the privacy of your own home. And so we started sharing a few things. One of my dreams was going to Europe, taking my daughter to Paris.
And we couldn't afford that as a family.
As a family, we couldn't. But one dream birthed another dream. Our Airbnb was requested for a week.
That was last year. So we got a hit on HomeAway for a week. People wanted to stay at our house for a week. Both of us agreed that we didn't even want to leave. It was a week that we didn't have planned to go anywhere. And then we started thinking, we talked about how, do you remember this?
I do remember. You had already researched flights to Paris. And you had in there 2 tickets to Paris, 3 tickets to Paris, what it would cost. You opened side-by-side screens. You had the HomeAway reservation request, the 3 tickets to Paris. It was off by like $100. And we didn't say anything when that happened. We just looked at the screen, looked at each other, and we're like, I guess we're going to Paris.
We're going to Paris. Yeah, so that wasn't even on our radar to go to Paris at that time. But we got this request. We thought, well, we'd rather go to Paris for free than not. So what the heck? And that would never have happened if we didn't talk about the fact that we wanted to take Cecilia there.
Actually, we asked our daughter, because this is what happens. You start tapping into your heart, and you start tapping into the heart of the people around you. So we asked our daughter, what would you love to do if you could go anywhere in the world? And she said, Grandma's house. Mm-hmm. What about anywhere in the world? And she started playing around. She said, well, there's one other place, but I know we probably can't go there. And I said, just say it. So this is scary, right? To share your heart and dream, because it might flop. And she said, oh, I'd love to go to France someday. I remember looking at you like, oh my gosh, we might be able to do this. If plan this correctly, we might be able to do this. And her birthday's in the winter. So we ended up taking her. Everything aligned that summer.
It was perfect. Yeah.
What would you say to a couple that has a dream that they think they won't be able to get to that dream until they're retired? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that you won't get to that dream until you're retired, but you can start now living a smaller version of that immediately, And maybe the dream when you get retired will become so much larger because you'll start doing different things now and find out more of who you are. Maybe check off a bunch of things on the list that you would have waited 30 years. So your list when you're 30 years from now will be completely different because you'll have done a whole bunch of things that you wouldn't have done. So an example for that is I no longer want to have a bed and breakfast 30 years from now.
What?
Because we're already doing it now. Dreams evolve and dreams change, but they stay the same if you just stay doing what you're doing now and keep one big dream in 30 years from now. It's way more exciting to start living a small percentage of your dream today than it is to wait 30 years. So
yes. And I love that we can sit with other couples and help them tap into their dreams, because what they find out is that it's not about how you do it, a specific dream. It's that you're tapping into your lifeline. You're tapping into your gifts, your talents, your calling, your purpose. We know that generosity and hospitality it's in our heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, baby. Yeah, it is.
And we get to do that regardless if we have a bed and breakfast or we're renting out our house down the road and staying at a hotel. We get to bless. I mean, I've prayed for this family that's staying at our house. It's like, God, give them a great week, that they can be connected while they're in our home, that they can be blessed in their time here in Nashville. And I feel like that's the same thing I'd be tapping into regardless of the building, if it was a bed and breakfast or not. Not to say that it won't be, even though you already said we can't work that muscle, like you said, if we don't take those risks.
Yeah, I think you hit it out of the park. I think you're exactly on the same page. It's not about doing something now instead of doing it 30 years from now. It's about being who you're called to be, exercising that gift and that talent now in a small way and evolving and moving along.
Yes, so talk to your spouse. Have that conversation. What would you do? What's in your heart? Open the vault.
And another thing that I would say is that it is surprisingly easy to do a very, very small version of your large dream now. It's easier than you thought. We had the opportunity to do a small Airbnb. It wasn't on the radar until we asked ourselves that question of how can we do a smaller version? And then we felt compelled to at least try, and we didn't think we were even going to succeed doing it. And we had a lot of success, which it really surprised me.
And then you wanted a boat.
And then we wanted a boat. And I thought, how the heck can we have a boat?
Yes.
And I went on Amazon and found out there was a $75 plastic boat.
It's a bass boat. We had a bass boat.
Yeah, we actually looked up this boat earlier online on Amazon. It's called the Seahawk 4.
If you want to read reviews that make you smile, go to Amazon and look for Seahawk 4. People that own those are happy people. They're so happy. Yeah. So then we owned a boat.
It lasted 2.5 years, and we took it out several times on the water.
We were sitting pretty on the water in a boat and a glass of wine. Someone watching our kids on the other side of the water. It
wasn't as sexy as $50,000 boat, but it did the job. And that was 1% of the big
Well,
dream.
And that's all it took for us to see that, okay, we don't really want to own a boat. This is good for now.
Yeah.
This is good.
I mean, that's the perfect example. I'll probably rent a boat in 30 years from now, but I'm just not the person that needs a boat, and I thought I was. So,
yeah. Visiting Cuba, you took Diego to go to Cuba. We couldn't do it as a family, but we thought, why don't a few of us go? Take it for a ride.
Take a sample, like a Costco sample of your dream.
Take a sample. Go, and you know what it is? It's an exercise in believing that there is a hope and a future for you that doesn't need to come in 30 years. You
Absolutely
don't need
not.
to wait.
In 30 years from now, your kids are going to be gone, and you're probably going to be in a better spot financially. And you can wait, or you can start leaning in to have some deep conversations with your spouse of what are those dreams stirring around in your heart, and how can you start to do a small version of those today or tomorrow or plan in the next couple months. And I think you'll be surprised that you can actually start doing some very simple things that exercise that same passion in a very small way.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Life Journey podcast. For resources or to connect with us, visit freedomlifejourney.com.